Historians often divide British imperial history into two phases. The first, empire in the Americas. And after the loss of the American colonies in 1783, a second empire focused on Asia and Africa. In India, scholars still debate a key question: was British conquest accidental or carefully planned? Some argue the company was dragged into Indian politics by circumstance. Others believe expansion was deliberate from the beginning. The truth lies somewhere in between. Trade came first. Empire followed.
The British did not conquer India overnight. It took nearly a century. But they possessed several crucial advantages. First, superior military organization. Their armies were disciplined, regularly paid, and trained in modern warfare. Their artillery and firearms were often more effective than those of their rivals. Second, administrative efficiency. Company officials were increasingly selected for ability rather than noble birth. Merit mattered. Third, financial strength. Profits from global trade and naval dominance gave them economic muscle that many Indian states lacked. And perhaps most importantly, political divisions within India. Indian rulers often fought each other. The British learned to intervene, manipulate alliances, and exploit rivalries. Divide, support one side, expand influence, repeat. The turning point came in Bengal. In the mid-18th century, Bengal was the wealthiest province of the declining Mughal Empire. Conflict began when the company misused trade privileges and fortified Calcutta without the Nawab's consent. In 1757, at the Battle of Plassey, Robert Clive faced Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla. But this was not a straightforward military victory. It was secured largely through betrayal. Mir Jafar, a key commander in the Nawab's army, sided with the British. Plassey marked the beginning of British political control in India. 7 years later, in 1764, the Battle of Buxar proved even more decisive. The company defeated a combined force of the Nawab of Bengal, the Nawab of Awadh, and the Mughal emperor himself. After this victory, the company received Diwani rights, the authority to collect revenue in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. This changed everything. The company was no longer just trading. It was ruling. But British expansion did not go unchallenged. In South India, Mysore emerged as a powerful resistance under Hyder Ali and later his son, Tipu Sultan. They modernized their army using European techniques and formed alliances to counter British influence. 4 Anglo-Mysore wars were fought. In the early conflicts, Mysore proved formidable. But by the Third War, Tipu Sultan lost half his territory. In the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War in 1799, Tipu Sultan died defending his capital Seringapatam. With his fall, Mysore was reduced to a princely state under British control. Southern resistance had been broken. Next came the Marathas. After the decline of Mughal authority, the Maratha Confederacy had become the most powerful force in India. Yet their strength was also their weakness. They were a loose confederation of chiefs with internal rivalries. The British capitalized on this. The First Anglo-Maratha War ended without decisive results. But in 1802, the Treaty of Bassein changed the balance. The Peshwa accepted British protection, effectively allowing interference in Maratha politics. The Second and Third Anglo-Maratha Wars followed. By 1818, the Maratha Confederacy had collapsed. British supremacy in India was now undeniable. Expansion continued west and north. Sindh was annexed in 1843 after political pressure and military action. Punjab remained strong under Maharaja Ranjit Singh. He built a disciplined Sikh army and maintained independence. But after his death, instability weakened the kingdom. 2 Anglo-Sikh wars followed. After the Second War in 1849, Punjab was annexed. By mid-century, nearly every major Indian power had fallen. Yet conquest was not achieved by war alone. The British also mastered political control. Under Warren Hastings, the ring fence policy aimed to create buffer states that protected company territories. Later, Lord Wellesley introduced the subsidiary alliance system. Indian rulers were required to host British troops, pay for them, and accept British residents in their courts. They could not form alliances without British approval. This system reduced states to dependency without direct annexation. Then came Lord Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse. If a ruler died without a natural heir, his kingdom could be annexed. Satara, Jhansi, Nagpur, all absorbed under this doctrine. In 1856, Awadh was annexed on grounds of misgovernance. Through policy as much as warfare, British territory expanded steadily. Beyond India's borders, the company acted to secure its frontiers. It fought Nepal, Burma, and Afghanistan. It negotiated boundary agreements in the northwest. These moves were driven by strategic fears, especially of Russian expansion in Central Asia. India was becoming the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, and it had to be protected. Between 1757 and 1857, the British East India Company accomplished something extraordinary. It transformed from a commercial enterprise into the ruler of a vast subcontinent. Through military strength, diplomatic manipulation, administrative control, economic dominance, and exploitation of political divisions. But this rapid expansion came at a cost. Heavy taxation, annexations, displacement of rulers, discontent among soldiers and civilians alike. By 1857, resentment would erupt into a massive uprising challenging company rule and reshaping Indian history forever. But that is the next chapter. If you found this explanation helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more deep dives into modern Indian history. History isn't just about the past. It explains the present and shapes the future.